This is the Analogue Pocket, an FPGA-based handheld gaming device from the makers of the acclaimed NT Mini, Super NT, and Mega SG. After much anticipation and 2 supply chain-induced delays, the long-awaited Analogue Pocket is finally here. Let's unbox it and dive in. But first, please subscribe and click the bell to get updates whenever I publish new content. I also have other videos which will be in the cards in the top right corner of the screen, as well as in the end slate. Now let's get started. So, first things first, of course, we gotta open it up. On the back of the box here, it shows that inside is the console in black and a USB-C to USB-C charging cable. I've also gone ahead and removed the outer layer of shrink wrap just to make this whole unboxing go a little bit easier. Now, the box would actually open up. There you go. Now that is a gorgeous machine. I'll show it off in a bit greater detail here in a moment, but I suppose we could take a look at it now while we're here. Just gonna lever it out. There you go. It feels pretty solid, and it's a bit bigger than I thought. I think it's larger than a Game Boy Color. No, it's definitely larger than the Game Boy Color. It might even be comparable in size to the original DMG. Again, I'll show the system off in greater detail here in a moment. Also in the box, we have the aforementioned charging cable. No power brick included here, which I suppose is par for the course with modern electronics, unfortunately. And this is the paperwork. It comes with a couple of stickers here, if that's of interest to you. And this is the very straightforward quick start guide. I also got the dock, which allows you to play the Analogue Pocket on the TV, so let's unbox that as well. Shouldn't take too long. Analogue likes to keep its boxes pretty simple. Obviously, you have the dock here with its nice finish on the bottom. It has a weird Atari Jaguar cartridge looking handle for some reason. Thankfully, it includes a USB-C power brick, so you can actually plug it in. It has an HDMI cable. Has another USB-C male-to-male cable, and of course it includes its own quick start guide. Pretty simple stuff. I also got a screen protector for the system, which I'll apply off camera. But with the unboxing out of the way, let's take a closer look at the actual hardware. The Pocket's design should be familiar to pretty much anyone. Nintendo's Game Boy line of handhelds is as synonymous with video games as can be, and the Pocket's vertical form factor and button layout are evocative of the iconic portable family of systems. There are 4 face buttons on the front, 2 concave and 2 convex. The shoulder buttons on the back are a lot like the Game Boy Advance SP shoulder buttons. On one side is the micro SD card slot, which is used for updating the system's firmware. The opposite side has the green power button and the volume controls, the latter of which uses separate buttons instead of the traditional scrolling wheel. At the bottom is the Game Boy Advance link cable port, the USB-C charging port, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. It's actually pretty nice, because even the original Nintendo Game Boy Advance SP didn't have a built-in headphone jack. You had to use a weird adapter. And at the bottom here, between the start and select buttons, is the analog menu button. Aside from being used to access the system settings, you can hold menu and press the volume buttons to adjust the display brightness. A nice bonus to this proprietary button is that there's no real concern with affecting anything in-game, unlike the IPS screen mod, which uses the select button. For audio, the Pocket features dual stereo speakers at the top of the system on each side, well away from your hands to prevent you from accidentally covering them during use, and they get sufficiently loud. Check out how it compares to the original hardware. I said it before, but the system feels nice and solid, sitting at a hefty 285 grams, roughly 30% more than the Color and AGB, and almost double the density of the SP. The buttons all feel very high quality with just the right amount of travel and no clickiness. The cartridge slot on the back has the appropriate resistance when sliding your games in and out, and the slot is also elevated from the table. Coupled with the weight, this slight elevation helps mitigate the likelihood of setting your console down, jostling the game pack, and freezing up your game mid-session. Overall, I think the build quality is fantastic. It's clear that the hardware designers had nostalgia in their hearts and durability in their minds. If I had to find something to complain about, I'd say these small shoulder buttons bring the same ergonomic challenges as the original GBA SP. However, I think it's an understandable concession given the rest of the Pocket's design and layout. Now let's get into the system's key features. Of course, the biggest thing is compatibility, with Analogue stating the Pocket can run nearly 3,000 games out of the box. Since I can't test literally every single game on every single compatible platform, I just grabbed a few from across my collection. It goes without saying, but this isn't going to be a comprehensive review of the games. It's just a test to show how the Pocket runs each group of titles. First, we'll check out Handheld Performance, and then we'll see how the system runs while it's docked. Starting with the original DMG, here's Star Wars 1992. This is the handheld port of 1991's NES Star Wars game. In the system settings, you can change up the display type between Analogue's default setting, original DMG style, Game Boy Pocket style, Game Boy Light, and the Pinball Neon Matrix, which is basically a Virtual Boy display. You can also swap color palettes between grayscale, mint, blue, green, and purple. Green is how I remember this game, so I'll stick with that. I also remember being totally shit at it, so that's what you're seeing right now. But it runs just fine, which is not a surprise because this is the least technically advanced game of the bunch. Here's a personal favorite, Pokemon Trading Card Game, a Game Boy title with color-specific features. An added functionality for black cartridge games is the ability to play in Game Boy format instead of the default Game Boy Color mode. So as an example, if you force GB mode, Pokemon TCG's infrared card pop feature will be unavailable, as this was originally a Game Boy Color specific feature. Off the top of my head, I can't think of why you would want to force games to run in DMG format instead of color format, but I guess I'm glad the feature is there for anyone that does need or want it. And again, it doesn't affect performance at all because the game runs great. Game Boy Color exclusive titles run similarly well. Here's Oracle of Ages. Looks great, runs great. Bonus, the Pocket can force color games to run in GBA format. So for Oracle of Ages and Seasons, the Advanced Shop will be available as you can see. I'm really happy to see that this was included because bonus GBA content in GBC games was always really interesting to me. And for Game Boy Advance, let's play Dragon Ball Z Boost Fury. Oh, I gotta give one sensu bean to Videl? I'm gonna eat it first. And boom, 255 sensu beans. Try to kill me now, Greg Popovich, you fucking idiot. And imports work just fine. Here's Pokemon Kado Gb2, Giardan Sanjo. Unlike the original Pokemon TCG, this sequel is a Game Boy Color exclusive and was never released outside of Japan. This is just as good as the original game, and I really wish Nintendo would make more spin-offs like this. I know there's an online game, but I'd definitely buy a modern Pokemon TCG video game released for the Nintendo Switch. Here's a GBA import, Dorakue Monsters Caravan Heart. Sugoi ii ne. Boku no suki na no Dorakue wa 7. Dakara kono gaiden ga suki. Even bootlegs work. Here's the fan-translated Pokemon Green. Runs like you'd expect, but man, these sprites are rough.
Look how they massacred my boy.
The Pocket also has an option for high-quality Game Boy Advance audio. To be honest, I don't really notice the difference in most games, but I suppose it does remove some of the GBA audio's tinniness. Have a listen. A nice feature of the Pocket is a proper sleep mode, in case you wanted to put your game on hold without losing any progress. Just press the green button once to put the system into sleep mode, and whenever you're ready, press the button again to wake and resume. Altogether, the Analogue Pocket made short work of all these titles, running perfectly well with no discernible issues outside of those originally seen in their respective games. And the screen is outstanding as well, with a pixel density and resolution that is frankly stunning. It may help to see a comparison. Here's Super Mario World running on the AGB001. This is the stock screen with no lighting options. Kinda hard to see as a result. Better bust out that worm light, baby! On to the AGS001 with a front light enabled. As with most if not all front lighting options, it does wash out the image. But it's a small price to pay for not having to play the game from street light to street light in the car at night. Next, the AGS 101 with a brighter backlight setting. I think the camera might be exaggerating the screen pixelation, but regardless, this still looks really great. Here's my AGB with the IPS screen mod. You can also watch me install the mod by clicking the cards in the top right corner of the video. God, the Game Boy Advance was amazing already, and this mod just breathes so much more life into the system. And finally, the Analogue Pocket. To put it bluntly, this display is best in class. From a purely handheld perspective, I think the Pocket may be the definitive way to play Game Boy games on the go. GBA games on the Pocket can change their display options between the default, AGB style, albeit with a backlight, and AGS 101 style. And I know I already said it, but really, look at this pixel density! Using a macro lens, we can see that each individual Game Boy pixel is actually 100 smaller pixels on the Pocket display, and Analogue brilliantly uses this to its advantage. See, on the original Game Boy Advance systems, the pixels weren't actually solid colors, they were vertically banded. This is a result of the technical limitations from the early 2000s, but since the Pocket isn't restricted in the same manner, it uses its pixel density to simulate the banded colors for its original GBA and AGS display options respectively. If we zoom in on the pixels, we can see that the Pocket is copying the coloration of the original display. It may be more comparable using the AGS. Here's the original hardware. Now zooming in with a macro lens showing off the pixel coloration. And here's the AGS 101 mode on the Pocket. It might not look exact through the camera, but it looks really darn close in person. Here's a split screen for you on the 101. You can even see the same behavior with Game Boy Color games on its original GBC display option. And of course, the default setting does not band its colors in the same fashion because it doesn't need to do so. One last thing about the displays, the Pocket has a video option called frame blending. Old LCD screens had slower pixel response, so Game Boy games tended to use alternating graphics to simulate transparency. Because the Pocket has a modern display, however, you'll just be seeing a lot of flickering, which can be pretty bothersome. The map in Wave Race here is a good example. I'm sure you can extrapolate from the name, but frame blending combines the on and off frames to create a transparent image and reduce flicker. It's not a perfect solution for every single game, but there's frankly not going to be a perfect solution, so this is as good as it gets, and I think it's a really smart addition. The depth of these display options is frankly ingenious. I don't know how many people would notice or even care that Analogue managed to recreate the original displays using modern technology, but it's this exact attention to detail that sets the Pocket apart from everything else in the field. With all that being said, one of the main selling points of the Pocket to me is the ability to play Game Boy games, specifically Game Boy Advance games, via HDMI out, which is why I bought the dock. And the results are good. Very good, in fact. However, as you're about to see, the options are pretty basic, at least as of this recording. And as an added bonus, we'll be comparing the Pocket's HDMI out to other TV out options, including official hardware and third-party options. We'll kick things off with the DMG's Mega Man 2, first on the official Nintendo GameCube Game Boy player. This is running in progressive scan mode, upscaled to 480p with a GCHD adapter, and then output to my Elgato capture card. It looks pretty good, but the image is still kinda soft, and the adapter is pretty expensive, though admittedly not as expensive as the Pocket plus the dock. Next is the RetroN Sq, or RetroN Sq if you prefer. A cheaper and easier to find machine for sure, and the system has improved by leaps and bounds since it was initially released. After a bit of tinkering, Game Boy games run pretty well, though there is a bit of input lag, which doesn't surprise me. On to the RetroN 5, which many of you are familiar with, I'm sure. For some reason, the colors were weird, and I couldn't figure out how to adjust the palettes. Not necessarily the system's fault, though. I am an idiot. And otherwise, the game ran fine and looked great. Here's the RetroPie. I built this system myself from the shell of an old bootleg NES classic. No real issues here, so long as you get everything configured correctly. Though again, the colors were a bit weird here, being more muted on this device. The GB Operator is next. Some of you may remember this from my dedicated operator video from a little while back. This is the cheapest system of the group, and it's not strictly a player, it's a multi-purpose device. It also doesn't have HDMI out, it plays in the proprietary computer software. And obviously, one of the drawbacks is the inability to set the system of choice. Since this is a DMG game, the operator runs it in black and white, instead of with any of the Game Boy Color's preset palettes. I'm curious to see how it holds up as we progress through the Game Boy library. Finally, we have the Pocket. Again, no real discernible gameplay issues to report, much like handheld play. However, like I said, there aren't a ton of bells and whistles here. It just runs the game in 1080p with HDMI out, you have the palette options and wireless controller support, and that's about the gist of it. Various features available in handheld mode, such as frame blending and display mode, are not selectable, and even the supported controllers at this time are pretty brief. You can't even remap the buttons, save for a few preset options like Super Game Boy mode and Mirror L and R. Let's move on to Revelations: The Demon Slayer, a Black Cart DMG game, which means it has Game Boy Color support. This is the first game in the Megami Tensei Gaiden Last Bible spin-off series, and it's the only one to be officially localized in English, so I think it serves as a nice little obscure piece to test performance comprehensiveness. It runs pretty similar to DMG games. Game Boy Player, RetroN Sq. RetroN 5 runs in Super Game Boy mode for some reason. RetroPie, GB Operator, and Analogue Pocket. We gotta look at the most popular stuff too, so here's Pokemon Crystal for the Game Boy Color. Hey, no man? Unsurprisingly, color titles run the same as gray and black cartridges. However, the Pocket's ability to toggle Game Boy Advance mode for color games sets it ahead of the competition. But GBA games are where Analogue starts to break away from the pack. There are quite a few 3D games in the Advanced library, and they all use a variety of 3D rendering methods. Let's take a look at just a few of them. We'll start off easy with Jackie Chan Adventures, a side-scrolling beat-em-up that uses pre-rendered 3D models a la Donkey Kong Country. Already there's an issue with the RetroN Sq. Remember the tinkering I mentioned earlier in passing? Even after installing the most recent firmware update, it had significant problems. The audio and video were desynced, and the game speed was well slow for every game I played. I grabbed a few clips to show you. After reaching out to Hyperkin support, they helped me figure out how to improve performance. However, even the support staff noted that things are a work in progress at this time, especially with Game Boy Advance. Jackie Chan Adventures runs alright now, but you'll see more as we push through. This is definitely going to be a point of contention for anyone that wants to just unbox the system and start playing. Everything else runs mostly fine, but worth repeating is the emulation-based input lag. It's minuscule, but the lag became more noticeable to me after playing the same games on the Analogue Pocket. I think the Operator and Pocket sit at the top of the pack for negligible input lag, alongside the official hardware, of course. I wouldn't say there's no lag, but it's lesser than its contemporaries. Driver 2 is a fully open-world 3D conversion of its console counterparts, and it's the first game here that has some unique issues. On the RetroN Sq, Driver 2 has no sound and runs faster with a more inconsistent frame rate, so it's generally less playable overall. RetroPie runs exactly the same way, so this is likely an issue with the system's onboard RetroArch emulator, but still no problems for the Analogue. Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam is interesting. As a fully 3D Game Boy Advance game with polygonal models and such, you'd figure it'd have some issues running on the SQ, but it actually ran fine after I changed up the settings. It's the RetroN 5 and RetroPie that struggled. Downhill Jam loads up on both, and the menus are varying degrees of navigable across each of these platforms. But as soon as you try to start a race, which uses polygons instead of 2D art and sprites, it just sits on a black screen forever. For the remaining systems, here's the game running on the GameCube. No problem, being official hardware, of course. Here's the Operator. Again, for a cheaper device that serves multiple purposes, the Operator is doing really well in these comparisons. Still doesn't have HDMI out though, which some may not like. And last is the Pocket. Again, no problems here. Bonus round, for whatever reason, the RetroN systems can't recognize the save file on my Fire Red cart, so they forced me to play a new game. But the existing save data is recognized and playable on every other one of my applicable devices, from the Analogue to the Operator. Not sure what the issue is with the RetroN line and my save data, but it's unfortunate that Hyperkin's devices seem to have multiple unique issues across various games. This is not my original copy, by the way, and it looks like the previous owner used GameShark because they have like 7 Master Balls. So clearly, the Pocket is a cut above the competition with its docked performance, despite its presently rather bare-bones feature list. What docked play lacks in bells and whistles, it makes up for in reliability. It plays almost all the games, barring some special cases mentioned in the user manual, it runs them perfectly, and it outputs a crystalline 1080p image. It looks sharper than the official Game Boy player, it runs better than the RetroArch emulators, it has less input lag than the emulation-dependent systems, and it has better software compatibility than its alternatives. It even works with a Game Boy camera. Honestly, the biggest issue I have with the dock is that the fit is kinda loose, so be careful during regular use. I do wish docked play output in at least 1440p or even in 4K, but hey, I'll settle for an experience that is consistent across the board. And Analogue is planning on releasing significant firmware updates that should add a bunch of key features to docked play, so that will likely round out the TV gameplay options really well. But the real question is, will the Analogue Pocket play Shrek 2 on Game Boy Advance video at 240 by 160 resolution on a 4K TV? Let's find out. Come on, turn a little faster. Come on, the world will follow after. Come on, because everybody's after love. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my fucking life. Subscribe, click the bell, and check out my other videos on screen, including my dedicated video on the Epilogue GB Operator. Thanks!